So last year, my friends Jeff and Melody hooked me up for the first time with my own chickens to take care of. And I'll tell you what, when people say they're the gateway drug to homesteading, they are not joking. You will fall in love way faster than you ever thought possible. Now, admittedly, I live in a kind of suburban area. I don't have a homestead like I dream of for myself out in the country right at this moment. And so I want to just give you kind of a little walk around of my chicken coop and give you some ideas of how to get started if you live in an urban or suburban area where you might just have a little shrimp-sized yard to work with, but you want to have chickens for your own self. Let's take a look around. If you're even thinking of getting into raising your own chickens, you're going to find a myriad of sources out there that have all kinds of information that's going to be helpful, but can also complicate a relatively simple topic. It's actually far more simple than I ever expected or thought it would be. Let me start by introducing you to my 4 wonderful chickens. The biggest one here I call Big Mama, and I'll just warn you right now, you often take the name of one chicken and give it to another one. And I did have a different chicken that was my Big Mama, and she was wonderful and she was huge, but she ended up being a rooster. And here in town, we can't have roosters, so I had to give that one away. So the next biggest one inherited that same name, and so I call this big black one Mama for now, just because she's sort of the mother hen, and of course she lets everybody know it. There is a definite pecking order, and she is definitely in charge. Then next to her, I have 3 littles, and so I've got Chicken Little, and when I was a child, we read the little children's book about Chicken Little and the Sky is Falling, and I loved that book, and so this one is named after that, Chicken Little. And then I have Arnold. I don't know where I came up with that name. He's actually the most recent chicken that I acquired. When I gave Big Mama away, they traded for Arnold, and so this is Arnold, and he used to be the runt, but now he's best friends with Mama, so everything is good. And then I have Little Miss, and she is just kind of the little girl of the batch. Somehow she seems just a little bit more feminine, and I delight in watching her as she somehow is the only one that looks extra girly to me. So she's Little Girl or Little Miss. That's my 4 chickens, and I'm delighted to introduce you to them. Now, if you're looking for the kind of chicken that you need, boy, do your research, because there are so many, and there are some that are excellent at laying eggs, but they're terrible for meat, and you kind of want one that's going to be for both. At least that's what I would recommend, so that once they have produced their eggs and finished that lifespan that's of usefulness, they actually could then be used as good meat that you could feed your family. So if you're looking for that, Rhode Island Reds are a good one. Sussex are good ones for that. And also I would mention Buff Orpingtons. The only thing about them, they're good for eggs and meat, but they are so cuddly and sweet. When you see pictures of people holding their chickens, it's usually a Buff Orpington, because they're just cuddly and friendly and they love people. And so it's very hard to butcher one of those because you've already fallen in love with it. So keep that in mind and be careful when you pick what kind of chicken you want. And there are about 1,000 other kinds that you could choose from. All colors of eggs. Mine lay little white eggs and big brown eggs, and I love both, and they're both amazing. So I'm not picky at all about what I get from these chickens. They're just the best. When I was little, we had chickens. We had Bruiser and Cheaper, just 2 chickens, a big old chicken house, and they were free range. So they kind of just took care of themselves and would climb up on top of the roof and sit there when they needed to get away from predators. Incidentally, at some point, the predators did get a hold of them anyway, because we lived out in the wilderness and it was perfect for the pickings. So one of the things that you learn quickly is that you need an enclosure for your chickens. And the 4 chickens that I have this wonderful enclosure that my friend Jeff and Melody built. And he had raised chickens by the hundreds and hundreds, evidently, in his past careers. And so he knew what was needed. And I really like the way he thought this out. I live in a suburban area, like I mentioned before. So you've got kind of a minimal space to work with. You've got to make them happy. You've got to keep them calm. Oh my, she is letting us know she's there, and we'll give her some treats here in just a minute. But what I've got right here is almost 20 feet, probably, I should measure it exactly, probably 18 to 20 feet long and about 4 feet wide. It's covered all the way around on all sides and even over top with that chicken wire. So there's no chance that predators can get in. In fact, when he laid the foundation of this, he even dug down before he put chicken wire into the ground below, because the chickens love to scratch. They love to dig and get in there, and it's a good thing that they put chicken wire all the way down into the ground, because surely these guys would have dug themselves out if that hadn't been there. So that's the first thing, is make sure you've got an enclosure that's going to keep them away from predators. But you'll also notice this one has a great amount of roof, but also open air, because the chickens love to be out in the sunlight. Even on rainy days, if it's nice enough, they love to get out and just feel the wind in their wings. And so they're out here in this enclosed area without any roof over it for most of the good afternoons. I love the way this one is designed, because it has a little part down below that when I have a broody chicken, or if one of them really starts pecking at somebody else, I can tuck them away in their own little sequestered environment for a few days, and they usually calm down and figure out that life is better when they can be with the rest of the gang. It also has this wonderful back on it that you'll notice was strategically made with kind of slider sides here, so that these boards can be slid up and off. It is a booger to try and clean when you're wanting to deep clean everything, and so having these boards be able to slide up and actually come out and then go right back into place is a fantastic way to have this made. And then of course I love the way these nesting boxes are. For every 4 chickens you want at least one nesting box, but they like to be choosy, picky choosy. So even though I only have 4 chickens, they like having 2 nesting boxes, so that if they're mean or irritated that day or moody, they can choose the other box, or whatever gets them excited about being able to pick which one they go in is an excellent way to keep them happy. About 90% of the time, they all choose the same side. They all want this right-hand side at the moment. And sometimes I'll find even 2 of them in there cuddled up together, laying their eggs or protecting eggs. But each morning I just come out. The wonderful clean AstroTurf that's on the bottom of these makes them not even need to build a nest there. They don't do a lot of defecating in there or anything. It's kept clean. And every now and then I'll just take those AstroTurf pellets out, shake them off real good, and get any debris out of them and put them right back in. So it's very easy for me to keep this up and to keep it clean. But every morning I come out, collect the eggs out of there, and then I just check on them. The chickens love to be checked on and talked to, and some people even set up radios with talk radio so that they can always hear a human voice. I don't do that, but I do come out and visit them at least twice a day and give them a little bit of a story or a little visit and conversation. If you can't have free-range chickens, then you're going to need some sort of a feeder, and I'll just leave this right here and say, whatever kind you need to come up with, there are a myriad of versions of chicken feeders out there, and I'm going to let you come up with what works best for your situation. It's actually costing me, I would say, less than $20 per month to feed 4 chickens really well. Probably less than $15 if I was safely guessing, but this Producer's Pride that I get at Tractor Supply, they have a 16% layer feed, and these are mini pellets. My chickens are small enough, they really like the minis. They don't like the crumbs, but you can, when they're little, you can actually get the same stuff in crumb form, or you can get it in bigger pellet form. My chickens are right there in between, and they really like these mini pellets. And then just to keep their diet kind of well-rounded, I went ahead and got these scratch grains. It's hilarious. I mix them in with their food trying to help them not notice, but they are not as excited about the scratch grains. I thought that they would be thrilled, and I threw a whole bunch out there, and It is good nutrition for them, and they do eat them, but much slower pace, for sure.
Okay, here we go.
Today I'm feeding them just scraps from inside that are completely random. I had some Bing cherries that were starting to go bad, and I have a whole bunch of green beans that I can't eat fast enough, and those are starting to go bad. So the tips and the bad beans I throw out here for them. There are almost no scraps that you can't feed them, but there are a few exceptions, and I'll let you do the research on that. I know you can't feed them potato peels. You don't want to give them green tomatoes, and a few other things to just be aware of that could actually taint the taste of the eggs if you fed them like garlic and onions and things like that. So anyway, most of the scraps you have inside that you don't throw in the compost pile are perfect for throwing out here, and the chickens just go crazy. But it's funny, the favorite things that they like are often right out of my yard. So I'm feeding them today some of the purslane that I have growing in every random flower pot and all through my yard and in the driveway. It's everywhere this year, and so thankfully they love the purslane, and I can't eat it fast enough, so a lot of it goes to them. And their other favorite thing I've discovered that just beats everything I've ever put in their mouths, and that is the little faux strawberries that grow in the grass. I don't know where you live if you have those, but around here in Tennessee we have plenty of those little faux strawberries, and boy do they love them and fight over them, but it's a fun fight, and usually they don't hurt each other. So back to how the whole structure was built, because this really is just an excellent way to build it. You want a perch for them outside, and so this has a nice long perch that they sit on and stare at me if I don't visit them often enough, and to take in the sunrises and sunsets. They'll come out here and perch on that. They love ramps. They love little staircases. Some people even dangle from a long rope like a whole head of cabbage as a treat for them, and it'll take them about a week to just peck that little cabbage to death. And they love toys like that they can kind of banter back and forth and play with. But also they definitely need one or more perches inside so that every night they don't want to sit on the ground. They don't go into their little nesting boxes. They want to sit on those perches and cuddle up all together in a big huddle and sleep that way, whether it's winter or summer. So you definitely want to make sure you have a couple of little perches like we've got in here. You're also going to want to have good water for them, and plentiful water. They do not need to go without water even for a day. If you miss a day and somehow they are left thirsty, it can make them stop producing eggs for a couple of weeks even after that. So don't give them that kind of stress. What I have noticed is that there are probably 100 or more different ways that you can water your chickens, and one of them is just in a bowl on the ground. The thing is they like to wade a little bit and wash their feet off, and when they do that they get all kinds of feces and feathers and every kind of mud thing in that water. So you got to keep it clean, and so there are better options than what you see that I have here today. My actual other waterer that I had gotten from Tractor Supply, they were out of the little parts I needed, but it actually hangs, and then it has almost like little nubbins or nipples that they can get themselves water from underneath that, and you can go to Tractor Supply and get something like that for yourself. Right now all I've got is this other watering thing that it does great. It just is something that I do have to actually clean out a lot more often than I thought I would have to. The other thing I should mention that you're going to want to make sure you've invested in, unless you can harvest your own pine shavings if you have a lot of pine trees around, but Tractor Supply is where I get mine. Get them wherever you have an ability to, and you might be able to get them cheaper at some garden supply place, but pine shavings are going to just be a fluffy insulator, and it's going to keep it clean. It gives the chickens something to kind of nestle into. They love that. It keeps away mold. It's just something that you're going to want to make sure that you have plenty of, because every time you clean the coop out, you're going to spread a fresh layer of this all through that area that is covered from the elements, so that they have a nice place to make their nests and also warmth in the winter and all of that. So make sure they have good water, make sure they have good food. They need a shelter over their head, but they also need an area to get out and about, out further away from that shelter. And you're going to want to make sure they have plenty of cage around them so that no predators can get to them. And that's about all you need to do. Literally, they are, if you get the right kind of breed, they're quiet, they take care of themselves, they look after each other, they are relatively maintenance free without too much trouble. And they produce so many eggs, it's amazing. So I get right now 1 egg per day from all 4 chickens. That comes to 200 to 300 eggs per chicken per year. Just this week I pickled 70 eggs, and there are a myriad of other ways that I preserve them. I dehydrate eggs, I freeze some eggs, I put some in lime water to preserve for a couple of years. I freeze dry eggs, raw eggs, to last for up to 20 years. Can you believe that? So I freeze dry a whole lot of eggs, and then I eat some every single day. So there are all kinds of ways that you can use them, and it's amazing how quickly they build up. But they also are great gifts to give to neighbors and friends that come to visit you. I want to just invite you to think outside the box, because if you did think that it was going to be difficult to have chickens because then you couldn't travel, well, I've never had a problem with neighbors not volunteering to, sure, I'll check on the chickens a couple of times a day and get the eggs for myself while you're gone, and it makes everybody happy. So don't think that that is going to be a huge thing unless you live clear out in the country and you really truly have no one that could come and check on them for you. All right, I know there's so much that I couldn't cover in this episode, but at the very least, I hope I've just whet your appetite for the idea of maybe exploring getting some chickens for yourself. It could be one of the best decisions you make for the days to come. Until I see you again though, will you make sure that you've subscribed so you get notified each time that we have a new episode coming out? Would you share this with somebody that you love? And would you take the time this week to intentionally go out and be a blessing to someone else? We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye. Hey there, before you go, I would love to share a quick word of scripture. This is out of the New Testament in the Holy Bible. It's in the book of Romans, and it's chapter 8, verse 11. It says this: "If the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells inside of you, he who raised Christ Jesus from the dead will also give you life to your mortal bodies through his Spirit who dwells in you." It's incredible. It's amazing. And it's getting dark out there. So would you go out and glow